time for the final word in sports all across the state. You're listening to Sports Talk with your hosts, Phil Kornbluth, Will Pelagic, and the Professor Tom Hayes. You've been waiting all day, so join the show now by calling 800-956-7266.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. Monday, after, of course, a huge weekend and a big Monday as well. So much to talk about, so little time. 800-956-7266 is how you can join us. I know you want to. We'll take as many calls as we can get in. We'll have our normal Monday night fare for you as well. Zach Willis, 1st and 10. David Shelton, high school championships. Mick Mixon on the Panthers coming apart. But first, the big news of this afternoon, Deebo Samuel deciding he will not play in the bowl game for South Carolina against Virginia in Charlotte on December 29th. As that trend continues to grow across the college landscape, I saw where Kelvin Harmon of NC State, another receiver, making the same decision not to play in that bowl game. Talk about that at 800-956-7266. Of course, the Final Four set for the college football playoffs. Agree or disagree with number 4? We'll talk about that as well. My thoughts on the Deebo thing is, well, if you know me, you know I don't like it. I just don't like football players walking out on their football teams, and it just sort of goes against the grain of what I think everything football has stood for and continues to try to stand for, even in this age of individuality and me first. And I know there's a lot of reasons, fear of injury, getting ahead on your NFL preparations, etc. None of that washes with me, to be quite honest with you. And I know I'm probably in this world in the minority because everybody kind of feels like you do your own thing these days. But it seems to me that you are letting your team down, you're letting your fans down, and what's the rush? I mean, it's football. You could get hurt lifting weights. You could get hurt. Could have gotten hurt in the Akron game. If you're doing this because you're fearful of an injury, you shouldn't have played in the Akron game, because you talk about your meaningless games in front of nobody in a horrible weather situation. That would have been the game to walk out on. But no, I don't like it. And I'm not picking on Samuel. I'm saying I don't like it for any of these guys. I didn't like it when McCaffrey did it at Stanford a few years ago. Now, if you're dealing with an injury, all right, and you're hurt now, and you're fearful of further aggravation of that injury, okay, I get it. But if you're healthy and able to play, you just don't walk out on your team. I'm sorry. I think it's a very poor message.
I disagree. I think it's a fantastic thing for him. I think that, again, he has given his entire career, came back for a year when he didn't have to play for the Gamecocks. I understand where you're coming from the standpoint of dedication to the team, but in this day and age, it's all about trying to get to the NFL. And your number one responsibility when you are of a certain, I would say, stature or a certain level of play, and he is a level of play that is greater than probably anybody on that team right now, is to yourself. That is your first obligation. And even seeing what happened to Zach Bailey on Saturday, I mean, your heart breaks for a kid like that who is going to play in the National Football League. And of course, that could cost him some money. And if I was, you said that you wouldn't have played in the Akron game. I'm surprised either of them played in the Akron game. I'm surprised anybody who had pro aspirations after this year played in that Akron game, because it was honestly, and I know why Ray Tanner wanted to play that game, but that was a total swing and miss by the Gamecock Athletic Department. I'm sorry. It was an embarrassing situation. There was nobody in the stadium. It was raining. It was cold. Nobody wanted to be there from media on down. It just, from my perspective, I don't know why you played that game.
Actually, I had no problem being there. I enjoy going to football games.
I heard,
but I was in the minority.
I heard from plenty of people who said that they were basically counting their life down when they were at that game. I'm just saying, yeah. I'm pro Deebo doing this. I'm pro anybody who decides they want to do it.
I think probably when you look at it, Zach Bailey, Deebo Samuel, they wanted to play their last home game. They didn't care what weather conditions was in. It was the last game they ever played in Williams-Brice Stadium.
In front of like 12 people.
Well, no, they don't care. They're in their stadium. That's their home.
I think more people were at South Carolina's spring game than were at that game.
I don't care. It's my home.
Mm.
You know, and my point is, what we've seen in the last few years, some programs are blessed that their athletes stay healthy. But if you've been at South Carolina and you've seen a guy who really had everything from upstairs to the tip of his toes in Lattimore, pro career just destroyed by injury. And you look at Zach Bailey, you know, right in front of you, and all the injuries that's happened this year for South Carolina. If I'm Deebo Samuel, I've got to tell myself, you know, I've broken my leg once. I'm not going to take the chance in a bowl
Don't
game.
tempt fate.
But in Zach Bailey's case, you can't question what the heck he was doing in the ball game in the fourth quarter of a 28-3 game. In fact, Muschamp left, I think, almost all his starters on the offensive side in there.
Criminal.
To the very end.
Criminal job by him.
Did not understand that whatsoever.
Why Michael Scarnecchia is not playing in that game in the fourth quarter is mind-boggling to me.
800-956-7266, our phone number. Email talkback@sportstalksc.com, on Twitter @sportstalksc. I thought Ohio State should have gotten number 4. Hear me out before you disagree. Why are all my opinions in the minority, but they're the right ones? I just have a hard time figuring that out.
You were half right there. You're in the minority.
Ohio State should have been your number 4. Don't give me Georgia. You lose twice. You don't deserve to be in there. You had your chance against Alabama, and you blew it. Your coach blew it for you in one of the worst big-time decisions ever made. So you blew it.
I'll disagree with you on that.
Well, let me finish. Oklahoma, okay, 11-1, just like Ohio State, 11-1. Oklahoma avenged its only loss. Ohio State didn't get the chance to play Purdue a second time, and they did beat Northwestern to win the Big Ten championship. The reason I leaned towards Ohio State, the way they beat Michigan, they beat Penn State on the road. They play in a tougher league than the Big 12. The Big 12, by the Sagarin ranking, 5th-ranked league in the country, behind even the Pac-12 North. They're 5th. The Big 10 is 3rd behind the 2 SEC divisions. You know, I just think that, you know, Haskins, a great quarter. To me, Oklahoma is 2/3 of a football team. Offense, special teams. They don't even need a bus for their defense because they don't play any defense. They're going to get creamed. I think Ohio State would give Alabama a better game than Oklahoma.
Answer me this, though. If Georgia's not deserving, then why would they be favored over every one of the college football playoff contenders other than Alabama or Clemson by Vegas?
Why would Vegas make Georgia? Well,
Vegas has come out and said Georgia would be favored against every college football playoff contending team.
Well, first
of all,
Vegas is interested in getting your money. Okay, that's the number one thing.
Vegas also knows how to rank teams probably about as good as anybody else. Better than the committee of stooges sitting in that grapevine hotel room.
I'm listening to the talking heads on ESPN, you know, making the argument for Georgia where they lost pretty. They look good in losing. You don't reward defeat, especially 2 of them. And when you go to 2 lost teams now making it into the playoffs, you are watering down the system. You have to reward success. You just can't go on the eye test and say, well, Georgia certainly looks better than Oklahoma. Oklahoma earned it.
Ohio State Oklahoma last year, by the way.
That was last year.
Same reason why
a lot
Ohio
of things
State
have changed from year to year.
Ohio State didn't get in 2017, partially because of the way they looked in 2016 against Clemson.
They're not supposed to think that way, though. The committee is not supposed to look that way.
Here's the point. Georgia did make the playoffs, and it was Saturday. Beat Alabama.
They had their chance.
Beat Alabama, and you're in.
Yep.
Now, when you looked at the ratings before the games, Georgia could only move up to 4. Would you penalize Alabama and make them play Georgia again? Wait a minute. We just played in the championship game. You're not going to do that. And you're not going to penalize Clemson or Notre Dame by saying, well, let's ease one of them down and shift Georgia to number 3, so Clemson has to play Georgia and Notre Dame plays
Ohio
Alabama.
State's problem was they had, for the 2nd year in a row, a criminally bad loss that the committee could not overlook to a team that they should not have lost to.
I can't disagree with that, but I thought maybe they had covered that up and made up for that. All right, 800-956-7266. Oh, a ton of recruiting for you tonight as well when we come back.
Sports Talk is the sports talk show of Main Street, South Carolina. From the coast to the mountains, we cover it all.
We've got plenty of reaction coming. 800-956-7266. Lines are blasting. So if you're trying, give us a moment. We will get through all of these calls as we possibly can. We have a poll question up at our Twitter at SportsTalkSC and on our website at SportsTalkSC.com. How do you feel about college football players skipping their bowl game to start preparing for the NFL draft? 64% of you are fine with it. 36% of you hate it. You're in line with where corn is. A couple of comments. Tom says he hates it. It's a selfish move. Maybe I do the same. Not sure, but it's selfish. Jamie says, who cares about the bowls? Get rid of them. Reconfigure the conferences, and let's have a legitimate playoff system. I'm all for that. A lot of people are saying depends on the situation, and Also, some people are saying most of the reaction positive, at least supportive of Dabo. Yours being the notwithstanding.
Debo. You said Dabo.
I said Debo, not Dabo.
We had another poll question
Dabo
up until the most recent one. Went up last night and through this afternoon. Who should be the fourth team in the CFP? 50% of the nearly 600 voters say Georgia. 47% say Oklahoma. 3% say Ohio State. A couple of quick notes. We're going to get to your phone calls. 800-956-7266. Hunter Renfrow named the winner of the Burlsworth Trophy. Goes to the most outstanding player who began his career as a walk-on. Can't argue with that. Ted Hendricks Foundation has Cleveland Farrell as one of the finalists for the Hendricks Award. Kentucky's Josh Allen, Louisiana Tech's Jalen Ferguson, Northern Illinois' Sutton Smith, the others. College football championship odds from Bovada. Alabama's 4-9, Clemson's 2-1, Notre Dame and Oklahoma, they are 14-1. The winners of the Palmetto Champions Awards from the South Carolina Football Coaches Association announced today. Specialist of the Year is Michael Hayes of West Florence. Lineman of the Year is Zach Pickens of T.L. Hanna. Saw him today at the press conferences for the championship games.
Big.
Good looking.
Big. He's
283 pounds.
Big. He's fast.
Back of the year, Eileen Ford of West Florence. Coach of the year, Victor Floyd from Chester. USC's Debo Samuel, Zach Bailey named to the SEC, all SEC squads today. Samuel as an all-purpose performer on the first team, a receiver on the second team, and Bailey named to the second team of the on the offense.
Yes.
On the offense. Heisman odds. Got my Heisman vote in late last night. Right now, Kyler Murray listed at 1-2. Tua Tango Vailoa listed at 3-2. Dwayne Haskins at 60-1. Everybody else is off the board. I cannot reveal my vote. Who do you think is going to get it?
I think either Tua or Kyler.
Who do you think?
Boy, it's tough. I'm going to say Tua by a nose.
I think I would have voted. I don't have a vote. I would have voted Kyler, but I think Tua might get it. Although Saturday hurt him.
Yeah.
In more ways than one.
Yeah, but most of the votes were in already, though.
That's the issue. That's the issue.
Some of us wait until after the championship games. I always do.
Some of us.
Scott Satterfield named the new head coach at Louisville.
Good choice.
Appalachian States. And that's it. To the phones we go. 800-956-7266. We begin tonight in Edgefield. Greg, welcome to Sports Talk.
Well, thanks, Corn. It's always a pleasure to talk to you.
Yes, sir.
And I will say that I agree with your guy from Missouri that Carolina should have took most of their starters out in the fourth quarter. And frankly, I think they should have played the third-string quarterback who needs all the reps he can get so he can come back next year and be halfway effective. And I do agree with you, Corn, in that I think that Debo's decision not to play the bowl game is a bunch of goat crap, to tell you the truth. That's how I feel about it. But let's look at it this way. The University of South Carolina gave him a scholarship, gave him a free education, and gave him a stage where he could perform his craft, football, for a number of years to a high degree. And because of that, he's likely going to be in the pros. So I guess I'm old school, but I don't leave the girl I took to the dance. I mean, I stay it out to the end, and I think it's this. I mean, real frank, I think it's pretty damn sorry of him, to tell you the truth, and I think it's pretty sorry of any kids. So anyway, that's all I gotta say, and I'll wait for you guys to comment.
All right, thank you very much. And by the way, the post-game press conference Saturday after Akron. It was quite an unusual moment when Brian Edwards and Debo were asked about their future separately. Edwards was asked about, is he thinking about the NFL draft? And he sort of gave a very quiet response, kind of just shrugged it off. And Debo was asked about the very possibility of skipping the bowl game. And he was like, hadn't even thought about it, et cetera, et cetera. But, with Brian Edwards, I mean, with his non-denial denial, I guess you could say. That's something else South Carolina's got to be worried about, the possibility they could be without him if he decides to move on to the pros.
The object of coming to play football at South Carolina for a lot of these guys who, again, are on his level is to put yourself in the best position to get a job in the National Football League. And the best position to get your job in the National Football League for Debo is to not play in the Belk Bowl.
Now, in Edwards' case, I mean, he could decide to go to the league but still play in the bowl game.
Yes.
But he hasn't said anything one way or the other. To Jody in West Columbia, you're up next on Sports Talk. Good evening.
Guys, what's going on?
Hey.
How you doing?
We're doing great, thank you.
Great. Georgia beats the brakes off of Oklahoma or Ohio State in real life, but I understand why he got voted in. That's how many FBS teams are there nationally?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that again?
100. It's over 100, isn't it?
What was the question?
How many FBS?
129.
Yes. 129
FBS programs.
Four is an awfully small number from which to choose a champion. You follow me? In other words, if there was only 40, well, okay, you got a pretty good representation with those 4. I think they need to go to 8. I think the top 8 gives them a realistic look at one of the best, playoff situations, the best football team in the country.
I have no problem with them going to 8. Here's the problem. And I said this on the show last week, and I said it on Twitter, the appetite of the college football power brokers is not there for it, number one. And number two, it would get rid of a lot of the controversy that, again, pardon me using this analogy, it's like crack cocaine for these people. They love the controversy. It would have made Saturday not completely irrelevant, but it would have taken a lot of the drama out of Saturday.
Also, you remember the last voting they did, if I'm not mistaken, LSU was 9th. LSU would be the first one to yell, well, wait a minute, we beat Georgia. Why aren't we 8th? So there's always going to be an argument when you. So
the only way to solve this, ladies and gentlemen, across the country and around the world, is to adopt the bad boys plan for a college football playoff. Alan Smothers drew up a plan years ago, I think before anybody else did, on how to fix this thing with regionalizing the country, having regional champions, couple of at-larges, and you earn your way forward. Much like now the FCS, of course, they are a combination of at-large teams and conference champions, and they have many more teams in there than you'd have in the FBS. But I'd like to see it set up where you actually earn your way into the national playoffs. Let's cut back on the number of regular season games, maybe pool the national playoff money so everybody gets a little piece of it to make up for that lost game. Let's don't make these guys play 16 games for those that make it to the championship. That's a lot to ask. But let's peel back some of the regular season games, and let's have champions that only champions advance. And if you want to have a couple of at-large for teams that maybe had a great regular season, lost in their championship game, deserve to be in there, be it.
You're going to have a hard time prying those 7 home games out of the dead, cold hands of a lot of these people in these towns like Clemson who depend on those 7 dates.
You're exactly right. I think the other thing is that as I said before,
because the school will get the money, but the school will get the money, but the city won't.
All the college football fans argue best team. You're not crowning best team. You're crowning a champion. Anybody think the Giants, who were 9-7 and won the Super Bowl, was
that's
the
not
best
the
team
idea of this playoff system? It's supposed to be the 4 best teams in the eyes of the committee.
Was it 4 best or 4 most deserving though this year? I think it was 4 most deserving this year, not best.
got blood involved.
Sports Talk South Carolina Radio Network will still continue to get to plenty of your phone calls, 800-956-7266. If you are trying, again, we have a full bank right now, so we'll get to as many as we can. Britton on Twitter at SportsTalkSC on the Debo decision. It's a business decision with Debo. I see both sides, and yes, the university paid their way, but the university also wants him to succeed in the NFL. It is a business decision, not a big deal.
I think it's a big deal. It hurts your football team. I mean, foremost, if you're a Gamecock fan, you want to beat Virginia. And now you're taking away your primary offensive weapon. That's not good. And if you have others follow suit, and now who's to say there won't be and who's to stop them, could be a very weakened Gamecock offense going into the Virginia game, a game that you want to win. I mean, I know meaningless bowl game, blah, 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 blah. I get that. But you know what? They put a scoreboard, they turn it on, and you're out there to win. And Muschamp's trying to build a program. 8 wins is certainly much more recruiting fodder for him compared to a 7-6 season, 8-5 versus 7-6. And remember, you got to take little steps to get to where the big 4 are. And Clemson took this step through the Belk Bowl a few years ago and got beat by South Florida, remember?
Yeah.
So it's a small bowl, and it's right in the big picture doesn't mean a whole lot, but it's also a stepping stone for you if you can build from it. And that's what they've got to do.
Yeah, and welcome to the big time, Joey Van and Kia Pollard. Here's your chance.
Back to the phones we go, 800-956-7266. We go to Billy in Somerville next up on Sports Talk. Hello, Billy.
Hey, Phil. How y'all doing?
We're good.
First of all, with the poll question, I feel like they did get it right. I've watched Ohio State play, and I've watched Oklahoma and Texas play. I've watched a lot of football this year just because of the playoffs and the way it's going for them trying to figure out a way to how Ohio State could get in. When you look at Texas beat Oklahoma the beginning of the year, but Texas was also ranked. Ohio State lost to unranked Purdue team, and they were supposed to blow them out. So you want to take the eye test and everything. Well, Ohio State's playing better football. Whereas a whole lot of other teams with one loss are playing better football too, but because of the strength of schedule, if you want to go by that, then you should have an argument.
Speaking of the eye test, though, how can you not look at what Ohio State did to Michigan? Michigan was a top 4 team. They beat them to a pulp. All right. And then they went and took care of their business in their championship game.
I still don't think Michigan's that good.
I realize that, but you got to also look at it's the same team that should have beaten Purdue by a pulp, and they didn't do it.
Well, everybody, Clemson scraped past Syracuse, squeaked past Texas A&M.
Syracuse is ranked in the top 25.
But they weren't at that time.
What's the old statement?
I know Clemson was without their quarterback and all that.
If you want to look at the eye test too, Clemson only beat Texas A&M by 2 points.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. They just got by a couple of times.
The old saying is, offense sells tickets, defense wins championships. Where they go to the committee, offense sells tickets. Stop right there. And they want
Are teams not allowed to progress throughout the season? I mean, is that a crime?
No, yeah. I mean, absolutely. Yeah.
The Clemson game against Texas A&M was 3 months ago.
Right.
With Kelly Bryant at quarterback. Could you imagine what would happen if Trevor Lawrence would have started that game? November, Trevor Lawrence started that game.
Trevor Lawrence played a good bit in that game, right? They had to bail him out.
Didn't play that much.
Kelly Bryant had to bail him out.
He only had like 4 drives in that game.
Yeah, Kelly Bryant had to come in and bail him out.
Exactly. Yeah. By the way, Kelly Bryant announces tomorrow. Have you heard anything late? What's your Missouri people telling you?
The one thing that he did say, he was very cryptic about it after the visit. He told the folks in Alabama when he went on his Auburn visit that he hasn't narrowed it down, contrary to the report that came out of the Kansas City Star and some of the stuff we'd been hearing about him narrowing it down to Missouri and Auburn. He still says Arkansas, North Carolina, Mississippi State are all still in the running, along with Missouri and Auburn.
All right, back to the phones we go, 800-956-7266. It's Mustin in Spartanburg. Mustin, Kapasi Glass.
Yeah.
Where you can buy my glass or you can kiss my glass.
There you go. Hey, that's the way it works. You got to beat competition somehow.
That's right.
So it is what it is.
Hey, Mustin, guys, tell everybody real quick why you love doing business with the Clemson Athletic Department.
Well, you know, the more money you can get from the Clemson athletic department, it'll be less money. They can get these number 1, number 2 players from number 3 players from wherever. You know, it's a fact. You know, it's just somehow people have got to stop that money trail. But that's okay. That's another story for another day.
Okay, Mustard.
So, all right. Okay. Hey, first of all, Phil. Hey guys, you won't believe this. Phil calls me up after the game and wondering where I was. I was actually headed out of town. Phil was going to buy my dinner for me Saturday.
I didn't quite go that far, but I might have picked it up.
That seems like
I thought you
were you talking to the right person there? I think you might have got a line crossed. Phil would not do that.
I was shocked. I told my buddy, I said, man, we got to make a U-turn here. I said, man, this is like, Phil's inviting me out for dinner.
Well, I would have taken you to Bojangles for a 3-piece and an extra order of fries.
Did he invite you to dinner or did he say he'd pay for dinner? That's two different things.
That is two different things.
I thought he said he would buy my dinner. That's what I heard.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I did have a few adult beverages, so I don't know.
A few?
100% sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you know, look, guys, you talking about the game that we should have played Saturday. I tell you, I had one of the best times at a ball game Saturday because, you know, the people that were there, they were enjoying it. And, you know, you could tell there was a lot of people. This was probably their first time they've ever came to a Carolina game or first time they've been there in a long time. And, you know, they kept showing these kids on the Jumbotron. I mean, these kids had big smiles. It didn't matter. Yeah, it was a little cool. It wasn't like freezing, a little rain, but you could see them, just smiling. There was a bunch of kids around my group area, and they were just having a blast. You know, it was fun for those guys, those kids. People were outside selling tickets for like $5 or $10, $20. I gave my tickets to, I can't remember who it was. I had like a bunch of extra ones. You know, and people were able to come enjoy this game. Yeah, you know, we didn't have, 70,000 screaming fans and this and that. But the people that were there, they thoroughly enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. I had a blast watching everybody and people that were there. They were into the game, and it was fun.
I tell you what, you're right, and that's your real diehards there. And I think that the university should reward those people with something, discount basketball tickets or first priority on tickets next year, something.
Should give them tickets to the Alabama game next year.
Well, let's don't get crazy, but they should reward them with something.
Because those are the people you want there.
Yeah.
Those are the people you want at that game, not the corporate people who, pay $160 or whatever it was. They should. I'm being serious. Mm-hmm. Anybody who went to that game on Saturday deserves the highest of kudos in my mind.
Free trip to Akron.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's kind of what Terry Bowden got after he was fired. He got the trip back is what he got, but not anything more than that.
Hey, this year, I love Coach Martin, but do we really want a men's basketball tickets?
Oh.
Wow. Come on, guys. Why you got to
give them some time? Young team, young guys got to come together. They got some talent among the youth. They just aren't playing well together as a team, and they're not getting a whole lot from their veterans.
Mm-hmm. I like the freshman. I love Frink. Seeing him for the first time on the floor on Friday, it was fantastic looking.
Tell you wide.
He's wide. He's got fantastic.
If Muschamp ever gets to look at him,
dude,
did he score?
He didn't. I don't know if he scored, but he played. I'm telling you, he's gonna develop into a very nice player for them. I love T.J. Moss. I love A.J. Lawson. Mm-hmm. And the one thing too, Frank spoke about Trey Anderson for the first time today, since he had signed the kid out of Modern Day. He says he's gonna be the best shooter out of that class.
By the way, we do have a team in the AP basketball top 25 this week. Who is it?
The Purple Paladins.
How about that?
Pretty good.
8-0.
I gotta get up. We gotta go up and see them. I'm ready to go up and see them play.
What's wrong with the USC women?
It's the bridge year. It's the bridge year.
No size. Mm-hmm. Plus, if you're better than these other teams, get them now.
I'm telling you, Dawn's got the number one class next year, and they'll be loaded for bear.
Mm-hmm.
I'm ready.
This was supposed to be a year, though, where their guards were supposed to carry them, right? Outside shooting.
Not when you don't have any rebounding. You need rebounding, baby.
Okay. 800-956-7266 recruiting. More of your calls coming up.
Now back to Sports Talk, South Carolina's most listened to sports talk show for more than 30 years.
We've been talking about a lot of different things so far on Sports Talk. Cotton Bowl berth for Clemson against Notre Dame. Also the Belk Bowl berth for South Carolina. Deebo Samuel not playing in the bowl game. Talking about the top four. Al wants to know why the College Football Playoff Committee refuses to look at strength of schedule. Neither Clemson or Oklahoma played a top 10 team, but Georgia played 4. Your response is Georgia lost twice.
Yes, of course. I mean, just playing them ain't good enough.
You know, Al
Let's win, beat them. You had your – and Pro's right. I mean, SEC championship game for Georgia was a playoff opportunity, and you had it. And you did not hold on to it. So I'm sorry. I do not shed a tear.
How do you like
for old Georgia, my dear?
How do you like the fact the Big Ten, for the second straight year, the Big Ten and the Pac-12 don't even get basically a passing thought? The fact that the committee ranked Ohio State 6th, I think, was very, very telling. It tells me that they did not think the Big Ten was either very good or that Ohio State played what you would call a representative schedule.
You heard the comment from Jim Mora? Well, he's worked this year for ESPN, right?
Yes.
He said that, I'm a West Coast guy. I played at Washington, and I hear the people out West talk about they don't see, the big Pac-12 bias or whatever. He says, sitting here with you guys watching 20 or 30 games a weekend and watching that SEC from one to the last team, that's the toughest conference I've ever seen.
And that's a guy who coached in the Pac-12.
And that's a guy that coached and played in the Pac-12.
Recruiting, shall we?
Yes.
A lot of it from over the weekend. I'll condense and move as quickly as possible so we can get back to the phone calls. We begin with Johnny Dixon of Tampa. He and his mother made another unofficial visit to USC over the weekend. He's been close to a commitment to USC. Did not happen over the weekend, something he did consider. Decision was made to hold off. He had a chance to talk to Muschamp. He had a chance to talk to Travaris Robinson. He said, I was going to commit, but I'm going to wait until the 19th. And he said that the USC coaches are coming to his house on the 12th probably. Said his mind is not completely made up. But if he had to choose, it would be South Carolina. Still planning officials to Miami and West Virginia over the next 2 weekends. Penn State had been one of his favorites, but they have faded. Offensive lineman Ja'Kai Moore of Nokesville, Virginia, is down to USC, Clemson, Penn State. He's taken officials to USC, a official to USC, an official to USC, just one. He has Penn State and Clemson scheduled for the next 2 weekends. This according to his coach. Clemson's Robbie Caldwell is due in tomorrow to watch him in basketball. USC's Eric Wolford also is expected in this week, according to his coach. Caldwell was in during the season to scout a game. His Penn State recruiter was in last week. Will Muschamp and James Franklin are scheduled for their visits on the 14th. He also has a basketball game that day. USC target, cornerback Jamie Robinson, Leesburg, Georgia, plans an official to Kentucky. He's taken officials to USC and Tennessee. Greenville tight end Jimmy Fritsch was offered today by Louisville, and he's coming off an official to Syracuse. Nebraska and Cincinnati also are recent offers. Chester offensive lineman Wyatt Tunall, who's committed to Appalachian State, will have an in-home Thursday with Mac Brown of North Carolina. And now perhaps you could see Louisville get involved with him. USC offered 2021 running back Mario Williams, Plant City, Florida. USC target cornerback Chris Steele expected to have an in-home tonight with Florida. USC is also expected in this week. USC receivers coach, offensive coordinator Brian McClendon checked in with Auburn receiver commit Jayshon Sheffield last night. 2020 running back Tank Bigsby, Hogansville, Georgia, was at USC Saturday, has offers from the Gamecocks, Clemson, Georgia, Alabama, and others. Clemson in the top 7 with 2020 linebacker Mikael Sherman of Washington, D.C., Georgia, LSU, Alabama, Ohio State, Penn State, Michigan, the others. Decision this summer. USC line coach Eric Wolford last night was in to see offensive lineman Darius Washington, Pensacola, Florida. He's been committed to Mississippi State. Defensive end Cooper Dawson of Hanahan was offered by Syracuse. He's taken officials to Army, Tulane, and UCF. He'll take one to Syracuse this coming weekend, replacing Vanderbilt on his schedule. Clemson recruiter Tony Elliott was scheduled to visit him today. He has a gray shirt offer from Clemson. Athlete Xavier Leggett of Mullins was at USC Saturday. Gamecocks have been his favorite, but they would count him in the 2020 class. Cornerback Colin Duncan of Montgomery, Alabama, had visits last week from Mississippi State, Kansas State, and Troy. He planned to talk with Travaris Robinson of USC today to see if and when he's coming. He said Mississippi State is recruiting him the hardest. He's working to schedule an official visit there. USC offered a preferred walk-on opportunity to offensive lineman Stephen McKinney, 6'2", 315, of Sanford, North Carolina. He was in on Saturday. He has several Division II offers right now, but USC is his favorite. The Gamecocks did likewise with offensive tackle Gavin Bennett of South Point and offensive lineman Jalen Tata of Lancaster.
Nice name.
USC offered 2021 tight end Hudson Wolf, 6'6", 235 of Savannah. He was in on Saturday. And the Gamecocks offered 2020 receiver Jaree Patterson of Asheville and 2021 running back Zaman Ross of Ellaville, Georgia, and 2021 corner Camaro Edmonds of Havelock, North Carolina. Gamecock Central reported linebacker Tyrone Hopper of Roswell, Georgia, was in for an official at USC over the weekend. He's been a Florida commit. Offensive lineman Matthew Bedford of Memphis took his official USC over the weekend. We talked to him just briefly. He was headed out to Mississippi State for an official. He goes to Indiana this coming weekend. He's been committed to the Hoosiers since the summer, and we'll try to reach him later tonight for further details on his feelings about the USC visit. Clemson's in the top 15 with 2020 corner Khalil Ringo of Scottsdale, Arizona. Rivals ranks in the top corner in the 20 class. USC target cornerback DeQuantius Watts of Atlanta, not able to make it in on Saturday. Florida was in Friday. He's expecting USC, Ole Miss, UCF, and North Carolina in this week. Safety Anthony Jackson of Rock Hill was at USC Saturday. He has offers from Virginia and Duke. He's in 2020 class. Cornerback Denaji Hoosendove, Fort Scott Junior College in Kansas.
Who's a what?
Hoosendove.
Oh.
He's from Allendale Fairfax, but he goes to Fort Scott Junior College.
Got it.
Allen and Savannah State have offered him. He's also hearing from Georgia State and Troy. 2020 running back Alex Wilson, Ackworth, Georgia, was at USC Saturday, hoping the Gamecocks will move on him eventually. 2020 defensive tackle Jamike Dukes of Waynesboro, Georgia, was in on Saturday at USC, as were 2021 teammates defensive back Dre Pinckney and athlete Charles McFadden of Boiling Springs at USC Saturday. Also 2020 defensive back Brandon Higgs of Hillcrest, and Alabama coach Nick Saban and his offensive line coach were in today to visit with Clay Webb of Oxford, Alabama. According to Bama Online, Georgia and Clemson scheduled to be in for their visits later this week. He announces a week from today, and those are the three, and the experts have no clue where he's going to go at this particular time. It could be any of those three, so we shall see what happens there, but he's a big-time center prospect, ranked number 1 in the country. That's it for now.
That was the condensed version, you said?
That was condensed.
Really?
That was condensed.
Wow.
I mean, I could have gone into a lot more detail, like giving you the 15 for Khalil Ringo.
But you know what you have for the non-condensed version?
What's that?
The Great Sports Talk Recruiting Podcast.
We have gone into the podcast world. It's a little weird doing that. I feel like it's just something that is I don't know. I got to get used to it.
The Twilight Zone.
I'm not sure if you're supposed to be.
You got to get used to talking for a long stretch of time with nobody interrupting you.
No. I've got to get used to. I can't figure out if you're supposed to be professional or relaxed and like just hey man, like what's happening? Let me tell you about Jaree Patterson of Asheville,
it's
man.
not the fireside.
Listen, man, it's
here.
They got North Carolina and Virginia on him, but let me tell you, this guy, he can really bring it.
Is he big?
No, I mean, it's not the fireside chat, but you can roast marshmallows.
I guess. Anyway, yes, thank you for mentioning the now recruiting podcast. In fact, I might put up another one here this evening.
That should be fantastic for those who want to listen.
Listening pleasure de jour. All right, top of the hour break. We promised more phone calls when we come back. Zach Willis will be here to break down the games from this past Saturday and look ahead. David Shelton on the high school championships will break down the 1A game tonight. And, of course, Mick Mixon coming along, too.
Best music compilation.
Round 2 of Sports Talk up next with your hosts Phil Kornbluth, Will Pelagic, and the Professor Tom Hayes. Don't leave us hanging. Join the show, 800-956-7266.
Okay, we're back. Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network, 800-956-7266. Coming up, we'll hear from Zach Willis. First and 10 with Zach on this Monday night. David Shelton here to talk about the high school championships. He'll be with us every night this week, breaking down a different game. We'll begin with the 1A game tonight, Green Sea Floyd's and Lamar. Always a lot of fun to be over at the high school championship press conferences that we had today at the high school league office here in Columbia. Mick Mixon on the demise of the Panthers. Fired a couple of coaches today. Greg Olson says he's done for the season, maybe for his career now with this most recent injury. We'll find out more from the Micker coming up a little bit later on. Let's get back to your phone calls, 800-956-7266. And we're headed next to Dick in North Augusta. Hello there, Dick. How are you?
I'm good. Hope you guys are doing fine this evening.
Yes, sir.
We are.
Good. Listen, I just a couple of things that, that observation, questions, whatever. Yeah. What was the top 4 ranked teams prior to championship weekend? It was Alabama,
Clemson, Notre Dame, and Georgia.
And Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's what I thought. And so last Saturday, a couple days ago, Georgia played the number 1 ranked team in the nation, and now they're out. Now, keep in mind, I'm not a Georgia fan, but if I was, to know that Notre Dame was sitting home eating fried chicken in a lazy boy recliner watching everybody butt heads in the kind of game that they had, that don't feel right. I do not understand. I do not understand how you can sit at home and not play.
Well, you got to remember, Dick, that last year Alabama was eating fried chicken, they were home.
And they punished the Big 12 for not having a 13th data point a couple of years ago, and that's what basically jobbed TCU and Baylor.
But I think that they need to put Notre Dame in a conference or leave them out. That's my humble opinion in this. And I hear you guys say things like, well, who cares about a conference championship or something? Well, I do. I think it's important. And now I'm going to tell you, I'm a Clemson fan. And I remember a couple of years back, everybody talks about the eye test. When we had to play Ohio State, I was 100% convinced they were going to beat our team because of what everybody on game day and all the pundits talked about how fantastic they were. We beat them 31-0. Now, there's your eye test for you.
Yeah.
And if we're not going to use the conference championships, then why don't we just let Paul Feinbaum and 2 or 3 of his buddies just pick?
Well, Herb Street had
who they want to
had Georgia up to 3 in his rankings based on, like you said, the eye test, because even though Georgia lost to Alabama, they look good. And, I mean, you should be incensed about that kind of logic. That is not what you want for college football. If you're going to do that, then let's just go back to the old New Year's Day setup and put the best teams in the old traditional bowls. That'll be 8 teams playing in the 4 traditional bowls. You can extend it to 5 and have 10 teams playing. Then let's look at how it turns out and do the eye test and say, okay, you look the best winning your game. You're the national champion. Let's just go back to that system.
Let's face it. Herb Street was using illogical logic in order to move Georgia away from having to play Alabama a second time. That's why he did that.
Well, as somebody whose surname is pronounced Logic, I will say it is not logical to play the conference championship games with the current tenor of the way the playoff is. I think that they're absolutely useless, and honestly, more often than not, provides a landmine for teams, and an unnecessary one at that.
Well, here's the point: you have a de facto championship game in the playoff. If Notre Dame is a conference team, they're in the ACC because they played 5 ACC opponents they played Clemson.
Somebody made something very interesting. The fact that the Big Ten conference money is cheaper than what Notre Dame gets yearly I mean, I'm sorry. Notre Dame's NBC contract gives them less money than the Big Ten TV payouts. So the whole Notre Dame, it's better for them to not join a conference argument. It's now stopping the
except for one
opportunity
thing.
Of holding.
They
water.
don't have to share NBC with anybody.
That's true.
It's all them.
That is true.
You know, when they're home. You know,
well, you think they wouldn't like that SEC payout money or that Big Ten payout money?
How much of a difference is there? I mean, is it like substantial?
I think it's substantial enough that somebody commented about it. I don't know. I don't have the numbers in front of me.
I think also you got to remember that Notre Dame sees themselves as a national brand, and they love to have those games to go out to the West Coast, up to the East or whatever, because they recruit all over the country.
Oh, sure. All right. Thank you very much for the call. 800-956-7266 is the number. Next is Chuck. Is it Chuck in Greenwood? Chuck in Greenwood, welcome to Sports Talk tonight. How are you?
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
I just wanted to say that I don't think the Final Four selection could have been any different. Everybody just take a good, honest look at it, and I don't see how it could have been any other way. And I would like to say that I think the bowl situation has just gotten to be pathetic and just a sham to make big money. When we've gotten to the point to where a team that just barely broke even goes to a bowl, I think the whole thing needs to be restudied.
Well, you know, teams don't I mean, your teams like South Carolina going to Charlotte, they're not going to make any money off that. They don't make a dime.
They won't be able to sell their allotment, I don't think.
Not only that, I mean, they just don't pay. It's I think that money's like all pooled or something and split up. And
what happens is it goes out by the conference.
Yeah, you don't make a whole lot of money. And
even the schools that don't go to bowls get money
back. Expenses, and even though South Carolina's making a 90-mile ride up the highway, they still got to pay for transporting the entire football operations and all your support personnel. Yeah, it comes out of your pocket. So it's not a money grab at that level. Now you play in the big boy games. You're getting a lot of money there.
And you have licensing stuff.
Now, the money grab may come from ESPN, who owns a lot of these bowls anyway. So they need the inventory for, the advertising revenue.
I mean,
that's why they have.
Let me put you this way. The bowls are basically like the equivalent of the Little League World Series for ESPN. It is programming in a normally dead period when most of their quote-unquote front-facing talent takes vacation.
Why do you think you start them on December 15th? You know, I mean, we're a little under 2 weeks away from the first bowl game.
And I'm not trying to belittle the Little League World Series, but you and I have actually in concert on that. They've taken that and taken it to a whole other level, which I don't think.
Well, I mean, you start analyzing 12 and 13-year-olds and they're breaking balls and things of that and their swing. That just drives me nuts.
That's the mouse.
No longer do we let kids be kids in this world anymore. It's a shame. Billy in Somerville, back with us for round 2. Keep it brief.
Because my phone got hung up. I can't help. I just want to make 2 more comments on the Debo thing, and I want to give you thumbs up on the recruiting because you did a hell of a job. It's hard saying how much recruiting you have to do in that short time. The Debo thing, I was kind of pissed off when I first heard about it as far as being Carolina fan, but then after looking at it, I think maybe if Zach Bailey didn't go out with a freak injury in a series on Saturday, Debo might have changed his mind, but he's had injuries in the past. And of course, if you're wanting to go to the NFL and you want your stock to go up, the last thing you need to have is an injury, and especially if you have a knee injury, because you know how hard that is to come back. As far as the playoff thing as a whole, instead of expanding it to 8 teams, why not just expand it to 6 and have like a play-in playoff where you got a team like UCFS, which is going unbeaten again. Seems like because of strength of schedule, they're going to be left out again. And a team like LSU, don't expand it to where you're going to keep kind of arguments, because then you're going to have travel, you're going to have teams having to go from here to there, and it's just going to be too much on teams. And one last thing going on, I haven't listened. How about voting Jerome in for All-American honors or Heisman Trophy? Because I haven't heard from him in a while, and I'd like to hear from him again on your show. Talk to you later.
Jerome? You want to hear from Jerome?
Here's the other part of it.
That's a risky proposition.
Here's the other part of expansion that's difficult. You're going to get to a situation where fans do not have the kind of disposable income to travel to all 3 of these games, and I wonder how many people actually will go to these.
You know, you talk about injuries. The Patriots' first-round pick, Isaiah Wynn, offensive lineman, He tore his Achilles tendon in the first preseason game of his rookie year. It can happen anytime.
Sports Talk is the sports talk show of Main Street, South Carolina. From the coast to the mountains, we cover it all.
We still see a full phone bank, but we do have to pause and reserve the line for the one who graces our lines on 1st and 10. That is Zach Willis.
Yes, it's kind of a sad night. It's our last 1st and 10 for a little while till we come back to the bowl games and we start breaking down the bowl games. Clemson heading to the Cotton Bowl in Dallas, and the Gamecocks heading to the Belk Bowl in Charlotte. Do we have Zach with us, or did he turn into a dial tone? I see a head shaking. I'm not exactly sure what that means. Brian, give me some indication of where we're going. Zach or no Zach? It sounds like it's a no Zach moment. All right, got to call him back. Lines are messing up, we're told, for some reason. Okay, get Zach back on the line. In the meantime, while we wait for Zach to get here, he'll be with us in just a moment. See if there's anything else I wanted to pass along to you. The Big South Basketball Player of the Week is Francois Lewis of Presbyterian. Had a good week, 25 points, 4.5 rebounds. How about the Citadel winning again on Saturday? Opened Southern Conference play with a win. College of Charleston picked up another win over the weekend, playing good basketball. Now, Clemson plays tomorrow night at home against St. Peter's.
Yes.
Gamecocks are hitting the road to go to Wyoming.
Wyoming Wednesday, Michigan Saturday.
Yeah, this is when this December could be murder for South Carolina basketball.
They could literally lose each of their next 4 contests.
Yeah.
Because they have Virginia after that at home and then Clemson.
All right, Zach is now with us. Good to have you back. Hello, sir. How are you?
Doing good, guys. Doing good.
All right. So we were communicating a lot over the weekend because there was so much to communicate about. Before we get to Georgia, Alabama, let's talk about the locals. I mean, Clemson did its thing with Pittsburgh. And, I mean, how many times over this run of greatness by Clemson have we seen them score on the first play or within the first 5 plays and just suck the life out of a defense?
We've seen it a bunch. And, it is impressive. If you watch Dabo's reaction on the sideline, he was in holy cow. And they basically did a great job all night. I mean, their game plan is established to run early and get you those 50-50 balls. If you press cover those receivers, and Pat Narduzzi loves to do that. And then later on hurt you with play action, and they followed it to a T, and their defense was properly motivated, I think, this week and played really well.
And, really not taking anything away from Clemson because they're in truly a league of their own. Really, the ACC is 13 teams in Clemson, with Clemson being in its own conference. And you could have said, well, they shouldn't play. They should play the second best team in that league. Well, I mean, they would have annihilated anybody else they played in the league on Saturday night in Charlotte. It didn't matter who they threw up there at them.
Well, I mean, you can say that about a lot of leagues, and I hear people say that, and I'm just like, well, somebody put a team on the field that can play with them. They've got Florida State and Miami. 5 years ago, you just said, wow, they're going to be strong. Virginia Tech was strong. They disappeared. I don't even think we played them. This year, they went out to College Station to Texas A&M, and, they beat everybody they played. I mean, that argument's a little weak to me. You can only beat who you play. So, I mean, and they do it with style. You can't say they don't do it well. They get the job done most times.
Is it hard to look at their defense and say that they improved because the scheme that they faced with Pittsburgh is so different, or did you notice some differences?
I noticed some differences. First thing was, if you notice, Christian Wilkins made a huge play early, intercepted that ball, took it down the goal line. He didn't do a Heisman pose. He ran straight to the sideline, strong face, knew he did what was expected of him. I like that because that shows me focus. It shows me coaching took place in the offset. Are they going to have some chinks in their armor? Well, Alabama and Georgia showed off chinks in the defensive armor of each team. They're going to be big plays made by good teams, and again, I don't know why South Carolina folks, I love them to death. I'm one of them. But, give your team a little credit here instead of discrediting Clemson. Those kids played their butts off 2 weeks ago and exposed Clemson. Everybody doesn't have a Debo Samuels. Everybody doesn't have some receivers.
And neither do the Gamecocks anymore.
Wow.
No, and that's I guess that's for next year. But you're right about that too, sir.
No, that's for, he's not playing in the bowl game.
I heard that,
yeah.
And I think that's like an hour-long show on that whole thing. And you made a comment earlier. I called it field back letting kids grow up too fast. Great point, in my opinion.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, look here. One thing that got me about Pittsburgh, Zach, is I know it's by Clemson's defense. They love to run sideline to sideline. And it seems that if you're going to attack that defense, even though it's dangerous, you got to go down the middle or up the middle on them. And Pittsburgh just seemed to play right in their hands. I said, y'all not running wide on Clemson. You can forget it.
I mean, I think that's a very valid point. I worked with Pat Narduzzi at Michigan State. And, people ask me, there's no way they're going to press that press their two corners up on those studs that Clemson has. I said he'll do it all night long, and he did, and they paid for it. There's no way they'll run it wide. He's a hard-headed guy, and it pays off for him in many cases, but that philosophy ain't going to fly when you play a defensive team that can run like Clemson or Alabama or Georgia, any of those teams like that can. You got to hit them with quick stuff, and you got to go over the top and hope they make a mistake.
All right, South Carolina actually looked good in the first half against Akron, 28-3 at the break, and then the second half came, and it was just a matter of getting out of there. 5 turnovers. The weather was terrible. There was nobody there. They lose their best offensive lineman for the bowl game to an injury. So it really was a downer, though they did get their 7th win. And, Muschamp is doing some things, and it's a slow, as I mentioned earlier in the program, it's a slow build. Even Clemson had to work its way up to the great level it is now by playing in these lower level bowls, but you have to continue to recruit and build on your success. Now, they're not quite building on the 9 wins of last year, but maybe they overachieved last year. And maybe this year, a little bit underachieved. I don't know. How do you look at their season overall as they get ready for Virginia?
Well, you look at the amount of injuries they had, and obviously it's crazy. And I do think there needs to be some internal, not investigation, that's the wrong word, evaluation to make sure that nothing's wrong as far as their strength program goes. I wouldn't think there is. Just had some bad luck. And you got to build off what you have, Phil. I mean, you got what you got there. It was a tragedy to see that young man break his leg like that. That made me sick to watch it.
Mm-hmm.
Not that it was that bad to look at, but just knowing that kid was in his last regular season game.
And to be quite honest with you, Zach, we talked about this earlier too. Fourth quarter, you're up 28-3. The other team's not a threat. Why was he in there? Why do they have the frontline guys in there? Oh, I know why. I mean, Muschamp was asked that after the game. He said he was concerned about ball handling. The ball was slick. They'd had a hard time. That's why he didn't substitute for Bentley and I guess some others.
If that's his reason, I mean, that big a lead, I'm going to get him out of there if I can and save them. But I can't argue with that philosophy. It's his team. He's going to run it the way he wants to. It just was an ugly situation, and they won the game, and that's the key.
You got 90 seconds to slam Kirby Smart if you so choose.
I've calmed down, but I'm going to say this play call I've ever seen in my career as a college coach or player going back to high school. There's no fake punt there. Everybody in the whole world in these fields was on the field. Number one, they're running quarterback to do one thing. And Alabama's in punt safe with their first defense out there. And then he blames the snapper for not snapping it fast enough. An example of another privileged coach not taking the blame for his own mistake. You radio down, it's all punt it deep. Nick Saban takes a knee and plays for overtime, I guarantee you.
Mm-hmm.
Zach, I thought you never in your lifetime would have thought that you would see Nick Saban get emotional. But what his backup quarterback did, I mean, even he had a tear in his eye.
He should. That kid's face showed through in that game as brightly as anything else in his character. He's a class A. And that's why Alabama wins the way they do, is kind of young people they have on their team.
Threw a BB on that tying touchdown, didn't he?
He has improved greatly. I will say that. He's a heck of a kid.
Zach, we thank you so much, my man. Have a great holiday season. We'll catch you on the other side when we get to the bowl season and break it all down.
Merry Christmas and Happy Hanukkah, Phil.
Thank you, man. Thank you.
Thanks,
That's right. Tonight is day 2 of Hanukkah. What'd y'all get me? I don't see any gifts. Yeah, I know what y'all are thinking.
Your gift is my presence.
Oh, gosh.
Wow.
Back in a moment.
Presents.
We now have the three gentlemen who will be invited to New York. Touchdown Club in New York. Getting ready for that. The Heisman Trophy finalists.
Downtown Athletic Club.
Yes. Yes.
Tua Tagovailoa, Kyler Murray, Dwayne Haskins.
Seems right.
Yeah, I would say so.
Mm-hmm.
I would say so.
Wish ETN
Murray is the guy that has really closed big, and I mean had such a great game the other day.
I'm going to say something critical about Clemson. Brace yourself. If Dabo Swinney and Tony Elliott weren't so married to the damn running back rotation, ETN should have been there.
Well, I mean, the guy at Wisconsin led the nation in rushing right about 2,000 yards.
I'm saying ETN could have gotten more if they were not so married to their damn running back rotation.
He had 1,300 and something yards. I mean, and he is playing for a national championship level team. That hurts Wisconsin. If Wisconsin, remember, Wisconsin was a preseason highly ranked team, and Taylor was expected to be a front runner for the Heisman. He had a great year, but his team didn't, and thus it hurts him. He still rushed around 2,000 yards.
What also hurts them is Wisconsin has road graders every year. It looks like whoever's back they get the handoff, they're going to get 1,500 yards.
All right, high school football championship weekend is finally here. My goodness, the high school football season seems like it's been going on forever. We love it, but it's time to end it. We've got the weekend of champions beginning Friday with the 1As and 2As at Benedict, and then the 3A, 4A, and 5A contests at Williams-Brice Stadium. David Shelton, High School Sports Report, Charleston Post and Courier, also known as Best in Business by those who know him. He won't say it himself. Will you, David? Will you say that yourself?
No, I won't say that. There are too many good guys covering prep football for me to make that claim.
Yeah, but
I will say I'm the oldest. I'm the longest tenured. How about that?
You like to hear it. You like to hear it. Let's be honest. Good seeing everybody
you
today.
You only say that because I'll come on your show. I know that.
No, I've had others, and you get credit where credit is due.
I hear you.
We're going to break down each of the state championship games during this segment, except on Wednesday night. We'll do it at 7:20 because that's an SC Wild night at 7:30. So let's begin with the 1A matchup. What a great matchup it is, though. It's two teams from really the same part of the state, Lamar, Green Sea Floyds. One team has a great history of championships. Another is there for the first time, but is a great human story because of what they've gone through with the flooding and the team being apart for many, many weeks and coming back together and having this great season.
Yeah, Green Sea Floyd. Imagine now he confirmed today they were apart for a month. I mean, in between games for a month, they were apart for 3.5 weeks. Couldn't do anything. Some of them were displaced from their homes. The coaches weren't allowed to be with the players because of the district rules and whatnot. And then they come back from that and win all their games and get to the state finals. It really is a remarkable story. A program that's never been past the second round. A couple of years ago they were 10. And then on the other side, you have a Lamar team that's playing in their 4th consecutive title game. They won last year. They lost 2 years ago. They won 3 years ago. So they're looking for 3 out of 4. It's back in 2001, 2, 3. I think they won 3 in a row. So this is a program that's got a pretty good history and, got NFL guys and from their program. And it's just a different level program, although it is Class A. But I tell you what, I give Green Sea Floyd a shot. I mean, I really do. I think they run the football well enough, and they're playing with so much, literally playing for their community. I think they've got a shot. I would pick Lamar, but I definitely think Green Sea Floyds will give them all they want. It's a matter of kind of how they handle the biggest stage. That level. Lamar has players who have played in. This will be their 3rd state championship game, so they'll have the edge there. They'll know how to handle the week and handle that day, the travel and all that. So we'll see how it happens, how it plays out. But I think it's going to be a really good game. I really do.
Give me the comparison schematically. Green Sea Floyd's offense and Lamar's offense. How are they the same or how are they different?
Well, Green Sea Floyd is going to run the football a lot. I mean, that is their game and play defense. Lamar will throw it a tad more, but their bread and butter is the run game. Jacquez Lucas is their top back. He had a really big game last year in the state finals. But Lamar's not as potent offensively as they have been. Now, their quarterback got hurt a couple of weeks ago, and they had to move another guy there who's not quite the runner that Cameron Galloway was. So they're a little different, but primarily both teams want to run the football. Lamar maybe a slight edge in the passing game. Lamar's very good on defense too, and you know they were down 14-0 to Dixie on Friday night because they had 5 turnovers in the first half, and then they go out and pitch a shutout in the second half and score 3 times to win a close game. So they've been tested. Green Sea Floyd blew out Hemingway, blew out Baptist Hill. In fact, they've scored over 60 in 3 of their last 4 games, I think it is, or 5 games. But they're explosive. They score, hit big plays. They're a little bit more big play run game than Lamar, but Lamar may be a little bit better defensively.
I'm going to ask you a question similar to the one that was asked of Devo Sweeney on the Cotton Bowl teleconference, David. What part does experience play at this level, especially from Lamar's standpoint, here for the 4th consecutive year? And like you said, Green Sea Floyd's basically a relative newcomer and basically the biggest of the noobs, if you will.
Yeah, I think I think there's an advantage. I think that you heard some coaches talk about today about knowing how to attack the weak and keep everything the same and keep it normal. The height, the Lamar knows how to handle all the excitement and the hype. The Green Sea Floyd, they're probably bouncing off the walls ready to go. I think it'll be important for Green Sea Floyd to kind of keep themselves in the game in the first quarter, maybe the first half, and don't get caught up. There's more fans. It's a bigger stadium. It's artificial turf, and I promise you there is no turf in Nichols, South Carolina. So that will be different. You know, so I think there's some – I think the experience matters. It may not have a huge effect in the overall game, but I definitely think that first quarter – I mean, you've seen teams in the past that are making their first and they get behind 14, 21-0, and they never can recover. And I think that's what Green Sea Floyd is playing for. They're trying to stay in this game, give themselves – let them relax a little bit, let them get into the physicality of the game, and then all the noise in the stands or the size of the stadium is not going to matter much.
Well, you know, it's not out of the realm of the norm for high school kids, especially talented kids, to go both ways. But it seems that when you get to this single A level, more and more of their players go both ways. As far as stamina is concerned, will that play a part in this particular championship level game?
I think it could, but I think both teams are kind of the same in that regards. When I was looking at lineups, they do play. Their best players are playing both ways, and in fact, when you look at the bigger level, over at when we get to the T.L. Hanna story in 5A, they're playing several guys both ways. So you're going to play your best guys, especially in situations like this. I think Lamar may play a few less both ways. I think they have a little bigger roster overall. But again, I mean, these kids have been doing it all year. I don't, and it's supposed to be cool. I don't see it becoming a factor.
All right, give us your pick one more time.
I think I'm going to go Lamar 27, Green Sea Floyd's 20.
Oh, good tight game over at Benedict.
I do think it will be a competitive game if they stay in it early.
Yeah, and that's a 5 o'clock kickoff, right?
Correct, it is.
First game of the day. Thank you, sir. We appreciate you. Talk to you tomorrow night.
Okay, take care. David
Shelton, High School Sports Report, Charleston Post and Courier. Good seeing him today over at the press conference. So there you go. He likes Lamar in a tight one over Green Sea Floyd's. Yeah, they took a month off. They came back. They had 4 days to practice before they got back into a game.
And you have to be honest with you. No one's in that situation. No one's on the weight room. No one's running. No one's doing anything. They're just trying to survive.
But you know, those kids were just happy to get back together again.
Sure.
And get back into football and get away from everything that was going on.
They found out how much they loved it because it was taken away from them.
And that area, of course, devastated twice by major flooding in a, 4-year period?
Yeah.
Matthew and Florence, about 3-4 years apart.
Yep.
Okay, we'll be back. McMixon will join us here, talk about the Panthers. We'll try and squeeze in maybe a couple of final calls for those of you holding on. We'll be back.
First and goal from the 10. Important moments of the game, possibly the season. On first and goal. Slant, left side, touchdown, Carolina. Devin Funchess, welcome back.
All right, we welcome in Mick Mixon, the voice of the Panthers. Boy, I tell you, being a Packers fan and you being a Panthers fan and the voice of the Panthers, I feel your pain. When it goes bad, brother.
Who would have thought that the Panthers, that Green Bay, that the Eagles, it's the NFL. I guess is why we tune in and watch and listen and pay attention. But, Corn, the Panthers, I mean, it's not just one thing. We have multiple underlying disorders. Newton's 4 interceptions yesterday. Where did that come from? He was under pressure for a couple of them, sacked 4 times. Jameis Winston played great. Tampa Bay was missing their top 2 corners, and they were 27th in the NFL in pass defense. They hadn't gotten any picks hardly, but yet they look like they're like 4 Deion Sanders back there yesterday. I mean, it's just psychotic.
Yeah. And then today, it's not Black Monday yet. That's coming, but it was sort of a Black Monday in the football offices. There are 2 coaches dismissed, people asking Rivera, about his job security. You kind of find out who your friends are when you start losing games in the NFL.
That's what it's come to. It is the Panthers have gone in a heartbeat, have gone from comparisons to the 2015 team. Can Carolina go all the way? To now, can the coach survive? He's having to answer questions about his job security. He's going to take over more of a role on defense. He's going to call the defenses for a while, work with particularly the secondary and the linebackers on pass defense, some third and long situations. But will it be enough? I don't know. Oddly, Corn, you could still go 10-6. Don't laugh in my face for saying that, because that would mean beating the Saints twice. Right now, it looks like you can't beat anybody. But this is what the team is thinking. I'm trying to tell you what they're thinking in the locker room, and that is shock the world, win 4 in a row, and somehow slip into the postseason.
We've talked like in the break about kind of the staff changes, and obviously the staff comes under fire. I guess, how do you spin that forward and turn that into a positive for where Carolina sits right now?
I don't know. It's a good question. I think what you do is you get the defense more listening to one voice. I think that's what's been needed is one voice. In Brady Hoke, very good football coach, but used to being a head coach and used to being in college. You coach NFL defensive linemen differently than you do college defensive linemen. Maybe it'll be more unified, maybe just fewer messages, but maybe more important messages coming coach to player that will help this defense rise up.
You obviously didn't hear my message last week about your cold. You're not taking enough Jack Daniel to get that thing under control.
I actually feel really good. I'm at that place, and I'd love to know why this is. But when I could sit here for hours and listen, but when I try to talk, I tend to cough. I apologize, Corn. I know I'm hard to listen.
It's a very good. You're managing your coughing quite well. Before we let you go, Greg Olsen, done for the year, done for the career, or you think he'll want to come back?
That's a great question. I don't know. You could see him wanting to come back and not go out like this. He loves football. He's eaten up with football. He talks it, lives it, sleeps it, dreams it, breathes it. But yet, is the foot telling him what he maybe doesn't want to know right now, which is that it is time. Whenever he does retire, he'll go directly. He will not pass go. He will not do high school football or college football. He'll go right to an NFL TV booth.
Maybe your sideline. Maybe he'll be your other sideline announcer.
Well, it'd be a good get for us. He's a beloved figure in Panther history, a lot like Jake Delhomme.
As far as this offense is concerned, when you get down to positions like you were yesterday with the 4th down, do you see Cam Newton now thinking, okay, I may have to turn into Superman again and run at certain times to get just the juices flowing?
I think we saw a little bit of that yesterday. There was more of that yesterday, but But what about his shoulder? Are there things going on that are not widely known with his shoulder? He doesn't run like he's nursing it, but then Heineke comes in for the last play to get the distance on a 50-yard pass. Normally that's no problem for Newton. He could throw it 75 yards, but I don't know. I think Cleveland's pretty good. I watched the first 2 quarters of them against the Bengals today on NFL Game Pass. And this is not an automatic win by any stretch for the Panthers going to the dog pound.
Take care of that voice, my man, and get rid of that cough, and we'll talk to you next week.
Let's do that lunch thing, Corn.
You got it. In fact, we're coming. Right, we're coming up to your neck of the woods for the bowl game, so I'll have to sit in the Mick Mixon suite and enjoy myself.
Yeah, so just saying, I just don't want to be the memorial suite.
Jack Daniel, just remember my good friend Jack.
All right, man.
All right. Thank you very much. Quickly, we've had some folks holding. We appreciate it. And thanks to Mick Mixon once again. Richard in Charleston, if he's still there, we can go to Richard in Charleston. I think Brian's ordering a pizza. Ronald in West Columbia. Somehow Richard morphed into Ronald in West Columbia. Ronald, welcome in.
Thanks a lot, guys. Y'all remember a week or so ago when I came on the air and talked a little bit about Dabo's comments after the Carolina loss.
How could we forget, Ronald? How could we forget?
The Carolina win, I should say.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think Will disagreed with me a good bit about that and said something along the lines, let Dabo coach his team.
Mm-hmm.
But I think you'll agree with me this time. You mentioned earlier in the show about ETN not getting the right number of carries.
Mm-hmm.
I think you'll agree with me that we shouldn't let him just coach his team on that question. I'm being facetious, of course, but I totally agree with what Will said earlier. Why are we doing this socialism with the running backs? I mean, Adam Choice is not going to have a pro career. I understand that you want to reward people that are playing tough in practice and working hard and all that kind of thing. I mean, obviously Kelly Bryant did that, and I'm not complaining about the decision to give the ball to Trevor Lawrence by any means. But, I mean, if he's willing to make that decision, why not go ahead and let your best running back carry the load of the running back carries? I think Feaster may have a pro career looking at you. I mean, this reminds me a lot of the 80s when we had Terrence Flagler and Kenny Flowers, and both of those guys were amazing running backs. But Terrence Flagler.
Can I answer your question for you real quick before we run out of time? I'll answer your question. Dabo now coaches for the last week of December and the first week of January. Go back to Wayne Gallman, his senior year. Or I guess it was his last year. Was he a senior or a junior who left early? Whatever it was. Yeah. You know, they kept his carries limited, and then they turned him loose starting in championship time. And that's the same thing they're doing here with ETN. You know, they don't want to wear this guy down in these games that they are winning easily. And even in this game this past Saturday, I mean, they didn't need that much out of him.
He carried it 12 times.
Yeah.
And they rushed it 35.
Did they need any more out of him? I mean, he's thinking about December 29th and January 7th, and he wants his maybe the best running back in the country, or certainly one of the top 3, to be fully rested, free of dings and bruises and everything else, so he can be at his quickest and his best.
I'm just saying.
And, that's all he's doing.
He had two carries in the first quarter, and they both went for touchdowns.
That's all you needed. I mean, you know, again, why push the envelope with him when you don't need it? That's an unbelievable luxury to have, to be 4 deep at running back, because any of those 4, and I hear what you're saying, they're not all pro prospects, but any of those 4 can get it done on the collegiate level.
Dabo is also thinking ahead when he goes out to people's homes. See, you're going to play if you come play for us. So a lot of that is recruiting.
Even Lynn J. Dixon got a fair number of carries this year.
He did.
All right. Anybody going to Clemson tomorrow? It is Tuesday.
Not I, said the cat.
No reason to. Nobody there. They're all out recruiting as far as. Now, there is a basketball game up there tomorrow night.
There is.
Yep.
They play St. Peter's.
Yep.
They should win that game.
All right. Well, have a great night. Thank you for all the calls, and our phones will continue to work tomorrow night. We'll continue with the calls and more. Have a great night. We'll see you tomorrow.